Welcome to the Doc Washburn Show. If you like what we do, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell. That way, more people will find out about our content and you'll be notified every time we do a new video. Our guest today is Mr. Kash Patel. He served multiple senior roles in the U.S. government, most recently as the Chief of Staff to the Department of Defense and Deputy Assistant to President Trump. As the Chief of Staff at DOD, his responsibilities included implementing the Secretary's no-fail mission with DOD's 3 million plus employees, operating a $740 billion a year budget and $2 trillion in assets. Prior to his tenure at DOD, Mr. Patel served as Deputy Director of National Intelligence, where he oversaw all 17 intelligence community agencies and prioritized intelligence collection to focus on hard targets and global threats. He led the director's mission to synthesize our intelligence holdings and created the president's daily briefing, which he then briefed to the president and cabinet officials. He also led President Trump's counterterrorism mission as deputy assistant to the president on the National Security Council. His new book is entitled Government Gangsters, the Deep State, the Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy. It's a great honor to welcome Kash Patel to the Doc Washburn Show. How are you, sir?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on the program, Doc. Excited to be here.
Thanks for coming back on. It's kind of neat. This is our first video interview after doing a couple of audio interviews. Now, I should have mentioned that you're also an attorney, but we're not going to hold that against you.
I haven't practiced in over almost a decade, so it's okay.
All right. So before we get to anything else, because there are a lot of big issues to talk about, last time we spoke was in the spring, and your new book was scheduled to be released almost at any moment, but now I see it's finally scheduled to come out in late September. Why don't you tell our viewers what happened?
It exists. Look, your viewers who are watching the show, as they should be, instead of just listening, Government Gangster hard copy. It's real. It exists. Get your pre-orders right now. What happened was simply the government gangsters happened. When you're a former government employee, you submit your manuscript for review, and that's fine. The process takes 2 to 3 months. The Biden administration blocked the release of my manuscript for 10 months. Wow. I had to take them to federal court and sue them to get the release of my manuscript because they were hiding behind the ruse of, oh, you might disclose sensitive information. I knew that was false. We fought them. We knew they didn't want the truth. They didn't want the index in the back that lists every government gangster by name in here. They didn't want the short form on how to reform the FBI and DOJ that they have weaponized, how to return our DOD to serving this country apolitically. And they didn't want us calling out the Russiagate corrupt actors who are now leading the charge against President Trump. So if you want to destroy the deep state, that's what Government Gangsters is all about. President Trump calls it the roadmap for 2024. And I'm proud to say it's releasing and everybody can get it on September 26th. Go to where books are sold, Amazon, Walmart. And if you want a signed copy, governmentgangsters.com. I'm signing tons of books.
So their excuse is kind of like when FBI Director Christopher Wray is giving testimony in Congress, and he's like, "Well, okay, we'll do what we can, but we can't reveal sources and methods."
Right. You're going to jeopardize national security. You're going to threaten lives. As if this guy, who, like many of your audiences and who served in government, is going to somehow become the radical left and say, yeah, I'm going to jeopardize a human being's life. I kind of know how to write this stuff without doing that. And I learned when I was running Russiagate and every iteration of Russiagate afterwards, if they're redacting something, the deep state, the government gangsters, it's their own corruption. It's their own criminality. Just like the FISAs, just like the launch of Russiagate. Now we know that definitively thanks to John Durham. And look at the Hunter Biden documents. Of course they're redacting these documents because they don't show sources and methods. They show a direct link between the Biden crime family syndicate and Chinese and Ukrainian cutouts overseas to the tune of millions. And the FBI and DOJ, Wray and Garland, are playing cover up for these dirty guys. And they're going to get away with it unless this Congress, makes a serious move.
Now, in the interest of full disclosure, when Mr. Patel says he was running Russiagate, he was working for U.S. Congressman Devin Nunes, conservative Republican out of California, and they uncovered the Russiagate hoax, the scandal. They did a big report on it. Devin Nunes was one of the few Republicans in Congress who really, did the heavy lifting there and blew this whole thing up and showed how the deep state really was going after Donald Trump.
Yeah, and look, if your audience, and it's not a surprise that many Americans don't know the story, and the reason it's worth knowing is not because Devin and I were in it. It's because it's the sin that launched 1,000 ships. And anyone that wants to know all about it, watch The Plot Against the President. Go have a watch party for The Plot Against the President this weekend with your family. I can't tell you how many people who are super dialed in have never heard of that movie or that story. And the reason I want you folks there is I want you educated on the corrupt actors that started Russiagate, that have now come back full circle to try and take out Donald Trump unlawfully in these bogus prosecutions, that have given Joe Biden preferential treatment, that have given his son a get-out-of-jail-free pass, and that are calling you domestic violent terrorists because you dare to go to church and pray, because you dare to put up a sign that says, I'm voting for Donald Trump. This is the full weaponization of justice. This is what must be destroyed, but we got to do it together, and that's what Government Gangsters is all about.
Or heaven forbid that you dare to pray in front of an abortion clinic.
Right. Right. I mean, game over then. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Game over then. You're going to prison.
Yeah. So we've all heard the saying, connect the dots.
Yeah.
A friend of mine went on Facebook recently and said the dots are getting so close together, they're almost touching, and yet so many people don't see it. So here's the concern a lot of us have. If they stole the last election, I think it's pretty obvious they did. What's to keep them from stealing the next one? And your book, Government Gangsters, apparently has the game plan to try to keep that from happening next year. Yeah.
Rigging elections is not new.
Yeah.
They mastered it in Russiagate. And for anyone that out there that thinks they're not on Russiagate 9.0 are fools. These people did it then. They did it during impeachment 1. They did it during impeachment 2. They did it during Hunter Biden's fiasco, the 51 intel letter. And now what do we find out? That Gina Haspel and her CIA paid government informants millions of dollars possibly to what? Alter the intelligence to show where COVID originated. These government gangsters, it's not a Republican or Democrat thing.
Yeah.
I probably name more Republicans in my book than I do Democrats. We need to prevent future elections from being rigged. And the one universal way of doing that is putting out the truth in their corrupt activities. When the Americans are armed with that, it doesn't matter that they don't like or love the person running for president. They're going to vote for the person they believe will restore our republic. And we have to collectively get the receipts out there. It's not an I told you so moment to say, hey, you should have listened to us. Those folks know they were lied to. Now we got to bring them into the tent. And to do that, we give them the receipts, we give them the letters, we give them the memorandums. We've got the government documents in here in this book, but Congress has the biggest job to do. They have yet to enforce the subpoenas against Chris Wray and Merrick Garland for weaponizing our justice system, for letting Joe Biden off the hook, for letting Hunter Biden have a different set of laws and facts apply to his criminal behavior. That's the stuff people are ticked off of. And once you do that, it won't matter what kind of arithmetic the Democrats use. We will, under Donald Trump's leadership, we will win in a landslide.
So you mentioned, interestingly enough, that you name not just Democrats, but a lot of Republicans in there.
Yeah.
Number one song of the country recently, Rich Men North of Richmond, by a young fellow named Oliver Anthony, who just came out of nowhere because his message resonated with people. And he didn't say Democrat, he didn't say Republican, he just said rich men north of Richmond. And they want to know everything that you're doing, and they want to know all about you. And one of the problems I think that President Trump was up against is the uniparty. You know, they impeached him over pointing out the corruption with Biden and Ukraine. And it wasn't just Democrats who were behind that impeachment. It wasn't just Democrats who were offended that he was telling the truth about Ukraine, right?
Yeah, it is the uniparty. It's the rhino establishment class. It's the radical left and the Democrats. They are always going to team up together because they need the swamp to fill their coffers with multi-million-dollar schemes and unethical conduct to enrich themselves and stay in power and stay in the headlines. The one irony, the one truth of it all is that everything they've accused Donald Trump of doing, collaborating with foreign assets, hijacking our DOJ, exposing the election rigging scams, all of those things that they said Donald Trump was doing unlawfully are the very things they did themselves. Like you pointed out with the Ukraine, it wasn't Donald Trump that got a Ukrainian prosecutor fired and then took millions of dollars. It was Joe Biden.
Yeah.
It wasn't Donald Trump who got in bed with the Russian oligarchs and then used the FBI and DOJ to get an unlawful surveillance warrant. It was the Democrats. And it wasn't Donald Trump who had 51 intelligence officials go out and lie to the world about Hunter Biden's laptop, which contained information of criminality that still has yet to be fully developed. It was the Democrats and the fake news mafia. So that theme is now, hey, you're not a right-wing conspiracy guy anymore. You've been telling the truth. And your audience and you and your tremendous show have allowed us to capture the people that were going to the fake news and the mainstream media every night. Now they're coming here and saying those guys lied to us. And that's our power. That we have been reporting the truth. We cannot fall victim to this stupid maneuver of yelling hyperbole and saying dumb things that are conspiracies on the air. That's what the left lives on. We have put out the truth. We have shown elections have been rigged. And we have proven that Americans have come forward and said, had they known otherwise, they would have voted for Donald Trump and not Joe Biden. That is the win.
And I appreciate your kind words. Our interview with Senior Trump Advisor Kash Patel continues in just a moment. If you've tried to buy a car recently, you realize you may have a hard time finding what you're looking for. People I know have actually bought vehicles from hundreds of miles away from where they live. That's where Red River Auto comes in. Red River Auto is a big old car dealership in the middle of the USA that believes in freedom, including your freedom to buy a car, truck, van, or SUV the way you want to. You can buy online and they'll drive it to you no matter where you are. Red River Auto wants to make your car buying experience as easy and transparent as possible. Red River Auto Group has perfected the online buying process. Just go to redriverauto.com and pick from hundreds of new and used vehicles. You can purchase a vehicle online. If you have any questions, one of Red River's trained experts will help you through the whole process. Red River Auto makes car buying online easy. Your whole car buying process is completely transparent. If you want to buy a car, truck, van, or SUV, order online from the nationwide car dealer that believes in freedom. The dealer that will deliver your vehicle to your front door, no matter where you live in the continental U.S., redriverauto.com. You'll be glad you did. I want to tell you about the best kept secret in American healthcare. Are you having problems with sinuses and allergies? Are you experiencing dizziness, vertigo, problems with your blood sugar, fibromyalgia, eczema, psoriasis, migraines? The Arkansas Upper Cervical Center might be able to help you. Let me tell you how. Your skull weighs anywhere from 8 to 15 pounds. It rests on the top bone of your spinal column, the atlas or C1, which only weighs 2 ounces. So it's really easy for your atlas to get out of alignment. If it does, your whole spinal column can get kinked up like a chain. When that happens, your central nervous system isn't able to communicate with the rest of your body as it's designed to do. I had severe hay fever for 5 or 6 weeks every spring all my life and migraines year round. When I got my atlas adjusted, the hay fever went away and the migraines went away for good. Whatever malady you're suffering from, do yourself a favor. Call my friends at the Arkansas Upper Cervical Center, 501-279-2009 for a free consultation. They've helped so many people I know. Please call them to see if they can help you. That number for your free consultation is 501-279-2009. If you're outside Central Arkansas, go to their website, turnmypoweron.com, click on the tab that says find a doctor near you, and I sure hope you can. Mike Lindell says because of your amazing support for MyPillow 2.0, he's expanded MyPillow's USA manufacturing and jobs. So he's clearing out his percale bed sheets by giving them to you at closeout prices. King size percale bed sheets, only $39 a set. Queen size, only $35 a set. Full size, $29, and twin size, just $25. Use promo code DWS to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime offer. Right now, Mike's biggest My Slippers closeout sale ever is on. Get Mike's all-season My Slippers and sandals at clearance prices. Mike's all-season moccasin slippers are just $25. Mike's My Slipper sandals are just $19.50. They're both made with Mike's patented impact gel that absorbs and relieves pressure so you can comfortably wear them all day long. Just use promo code DWS for huge discounts. Remember, DWS stands for Doc Washburn Show. MyPillow.com. Quantities are extremely limited at these amazing prices, so please order now. Just use promo code DWS. Now, here's more of our conversation with Kash Patel. When conservatives think of the intel community, they tend to think in terms of what you just brought up, the 51 former intel executives who signed the letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop had all the classic marks of Russian disinformation. Patriots believe that for that letter to be possible, that those 51 intel guys signed, the corruption in the intel community must be deeply entrenched, the epitome of what President Trump referred to as the deep state. So it's a breath of fresh air to speak with one of the good guys, you, with experience in that field. So if President Trump, or for that matter, any Republican is elected president next year, you could be asked to be director of national intelligence. What would you recommend to drain? Well, you got the experience. What would you recommend to drain the swamp in the intel community? Because it's deep.
No, it's a great question. And look, I served as deputy director of national intel on President Trump and be honored to serve in any capacity in the Trump administration to fix and destroy the deep state. And here's what you got to do. One, all 51 of those signatories, you immediately rescind their security clearance for life. They are never going to be allowed to work in government again. We are not going to foot the bill to carry their taxpayer-funded security clearance so they can go out and make millions lying and rigging presidential elections. Leon Panetta and all those guys, Hayden and everybody else, Morell, is out forever. And the same thing needs to happen to the Charmellas of the world, the guy who launched the bogus Trump impeachment with Adam Schiff by making up a phone call in the Ukraine. It's the irony of all ironies is that Joe Biden is the one that's on the phone with Ukrainian leadership and has his kid on the prep sheet so that they can figure out how to do a business deal together. Joe Biden did that. Maybe that phone call will come out during his impeachment. And what we have to do is then go down and throughout the intelligence community and government and find out who these people were, because they didn't do it alone. Who supported them? Who helped them write it? Who gave them the intelligence? And we will take each and every one of their security clearances and sideline them and remove them from the roles of government permanently. It is a privilege to serve this country. It is not a right. And when you abuse and break the law and break that privilege, you are to be ostracized publicly. And that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. Now, you recently, you mentioned impeachment. You recently said, actually, it'd be more important to impeach Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray than to impeach Joe Biden. How did you come to that conclusion? What do you say there?
Yeah, I understand the political desire to impeach Joe Biden. But look, everyone knows this guy is barely going to make it to 2024, if at all.
Yeah.
You just have to look at a 5-second statement out of his mouth, and you know all you need to know about our current commander-in-chief. You just have to look at his desecration of the victims of 9/11 and the brave soldiers that fought and died after that terrorist attack for our country. When this guy couldn't even find his way to a memorial site, instead was airmailing it in from Alaska, and then give $6 billion to the mullahs in Iran to fund terrorism. That's Joe Biden. And the reason I'm saying don't target him is because we know all that information. What Americans want is the destruction of the two-tier system of justice, the weaponization of law enforcement and the intelligence community. And Merrick Garland and Chris Wray at the DOJ and FBI are the twin architects of the destruction of justice. And if we were to go after and impeach them, we would get all the receipts involving Biden. Congress has subpoenaed them 17 times over, but no one in Congress has the gumption to go out there and take their funding until they come in line with the law. The law, which is ironic since they are quote unquote law enforcement officers. They've been caught lying under oath, both of them, about retaliating against whistleblowers, about the knowledge of the White House and the Biden investigations, those are separate crimes that they should be impeached for. But every congressional subpoena they have violated they should be held in contempt of Congress for. And by putting them in front and center of the United States and the world, we get to see their testimony under oath. We get to demand every document unredacted. The one thing you can count on these government gangsters, just like Chris Wray covered up Russiagate, they're covering it all up for Joe Biden. So the uniparty, as you put, stays in power, and they try to defeat Donald Trump. And they will fail if we can just get this Congress to stop being so political and start acting for the interests of the American people.
Well, now all that makes sense, but come on, wouldn't you like to see Biden having to answer questions from attorneys on an impeachment committee?
Of course, come on, look, I'm in the business, so of course that would be fun. And who wouldn't pay? I'd probably pay premium ticket pricing for that one.
Well, pay-per-view. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get Bud Light to sponsor it.
No, Bud Light. Okay. Thank you. Look, I want to apologize in advance for my next question because it's kind of long.
That's all right.
But I think it's necessary to ask it. Debbie Lerman, Michael Singer, Jeffrey Tucker have written at length over at brownstone.org about Deborah Birx. Mm-hmm. How she, and not Anthony Fauci, was in charge of the White House COVID response, how she had no training or experience in epidemiology, novel pathogen pandemic response, or airborne respiratory viruses like the coronavirus, how it took Scott Atlas a long time to figure out who hired her because he found out pretty quickly it wasn't President Trump. How surprised Scott Atlas was when he discovered Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger actually hired her, the same Pottinger who years earlier as a journalist has spent years in China, is fluent in Mandarin, the same Pottinger who pushed hard for the lockdowns. Oh, did I forget to mention Dr. Birx bragged in her book after President Trump got out of office about going behind his back on a regular basis to do things she knew he didn't want her to do. Should any of this concern us?
Yes, deeply. It should show you the government gangsters, deep state operatives embedded themselves into the Trump administration years before Donald Trump ever got there. And that's what they're doing now because they see they're not stupid. They're not dumb. They play the long game. They are now looking to entrench themselves in this Biden administration so we can't root them out. The good thing is we know all the names now. I worked with a lot of them, and I worked with people who know a lot of them, so we can explicate them this time coming around. But the lesson learned is not necessarily just the COVID. Of course, that was a disaster. And the lies that Fauci and Birx and company told to the world and cost so many lives with those lies, those individuals need to be investigated and prosecuted for that separately. But we need to take that as an example of, again, not as I told you so, because now we know the mandates didn't work. Now we know the vax mandates were never necessary and entirely unlawful. Now we know that the mask didn't work. Now we know shutting schools didn't work. And had these medical professionals, lifelong people, just done their job, we would have probably saved lives. And so I think we have shown Americans, tragically, that their government was hijacked by people who thought they could outdo a duly elected president and break the law in doing so just because they didn't like him. And when they're writing books and flouting that sort of illegal, unlawful behavior, it's up to us to make sure they are exploited for the criminal actors that they are. They are never brought back into government. And when Donald Trump wins, it's not going to be too late because people like Deborah Birx and company are writing books. You know what? That means the statute of limitations has started all over again. And it's not too late, 418 days from now when Donald Trump's reelected, to prosecute those guys. But you're going to need a kick-ass attorney general, an FBI director, and people are not going to be afraid of the mainstream media.
Okay, well, let the record reflect you wouldn't be just a great DNI, but you'd also be a great I'm going to get that on the record. But, you make a really good point there because if not for Fauci and Birx, and in my humble opinion, Pottinger trying to put one over on President Trump and all the rest of us, I don't think we would have had the CARES Act. I don't think we would have had the mail-in balloting. I don't see how the Democrats would have been able to steal that election over a virus that had something like, a 99.98% survival rate. Do you want to say, I just think it's weird that Pottinger appointed Birx. Do you want to say anything specifically about him?
I don't really know too much about that. I worked with Matt in the NSC, but the COVID stuff just wasn't my wheelhouse. So,
no, I understand. Yeah. Okay. So Again, you are thinking, though, that Fauci and Birx should at least be subject to a federal grand jury over everything that happened, right?
In the very least, Congress should be hauling them in right now with subpoenas for everything they ever emailed to each other, texted to each other. Of course, they were sitting there like jitterbugs, talking about how happy they are to get Donald Trump. And if Birx wrote a book and is making money off those lies, then the government should go out and sue for the profits of that book for her illegal actions while supposedly serving the American public. Congress needs to step up. People will get action when Donald Trump's back in the White House, but right now we have the House of Representatives. Congress needs to step up on multiple fronts. Fauci and Birx are case in point 1 and 2.
The conclusion of our interview with senior Trump advisor Kash Patel is coming right up. You know, the great Ronald Reagan once said, inflation is as violent as a mugger, as frightening as an armed robber, and as deadly as a hitman. Have you thought about the benefits of investing in precious metals? Here are 5 profound benefits. Number 1, investing in precious metals is a hedge against inflation. Number 2, it's a great way to diversify your portfolio. Number 3, asset liquidity. Number 4, precious metals tend to be a store of value. They don't tend to depreciate over the long haul. And last but not least, number 5, precious metals can be a hedge against geopolitical uncertainty and the struggling U.S. dollar. Andrew Sorcini with Beverly Hills Precious Metals has been involved in gold and silver for over 40 years. Beverly Hills Precious Metals brings precious metals to the homes of everyday American citizens. Mike Flynn told us about them, and they are our gold buyer of choice. To find out more, just Google Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Make sure you ask about the General Mike Flynn silver coin and tell him Doc Washburn sent you. Beverly Hills Precious Metals helps folks protect their finances, wealth, and investments. If you want to drop your big liberal cell phone carrier, Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier, is a perfect solution. Patriot Mobile has exceptional nationwide coverage and uses the same towers the main carriers use. Patriot Mobile guarantees your coverage. Patriot Mobile has plans to fit any budget, along with great discounts for our veteran and first responder heroes, as well as multi-line users. And switching to Patriot Mobile usually only takes 15 to 20 minutes. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you shift your support from the leftist progressive agendas of Big Mobile to the Christian conservative causes of Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile donates a portion of every dollar earned to organizations that fight for causes you care about. A portion of every dollar they earn is given back to the causes that support organizations that fight for First Amendment religious freedom, freedom of speech, Second Amendment right to bear arms, sanctity of life, and the needs of our veterans and first responders. Now more than ever, it's important to band together and support companies that share our conservative values. Switching is easy. Just do what I did. Go to patriotmobile.com or call their U.S.-based customer service team at 972-PATRIOT. Make sure you use promo code DOC, that's DOC, for free activation. Yeah, let me ask you something. Why continue shopping big box stores if you can get the items you need from a family-owned company? Now you can get around this crazy inflation by shopping factory direct at a family-owned, made-in-America manufacturer. Americans are walking away from the big box conglomerates and deciding to buy only USA. Join with fellow patriots to cut off the cash flow of the big woke corporations that are trying to destroy our country. These products include fresh American-raised beef, raised in the Montana mountains near Yellowstone. This beef is known as Never Ever. Never has the animal ever been exposed to antibiotics, hormones, or vaccines. This prime or high choice beef is shipped directly to your door. Pricing and availability is exclusive only to our members and isn't shipped anywhere else in the world. Let's start voting with our dollars to make sure our purchases are supporting companies that promote freedom. Email us at buyonlyusa@proton.me, and I'll have one of my guys contact you. Buyonlyusa@proton.me. And now the conclusion of our interview with senior Trump advisor Kash Patel. So a lot of us are very concerned with all these outrageous prosecutions of President Trump, all these outrageous indictments. And when you have people as politically different as Donald Trump and Mitt Romney, and not thinking Dershowitz, DeSantis, all these people saying, hey, all agreeing this is bigger than Donald Trump. This sets a horrible precedent. This is dangerous. This should not be happening. But the concern a lot of us have is, okay, well, even if you look at the New York charges, that's ridiculous. That gets thrown out. You look at the Georgia charges, that's ridiculous. That gets thrown out. A Washington, D.C. jury composed of 93% Biden voters who just want to put Trump in prison and they don't need any evidence. That's a serious concern. And again, you're an attorney. Where do you see all this going? How's this going to play out?
The Supreme Court. Every single one of these cases, they're all bogus. They're all baseless. They're all unconstitutional. But if they end up in any sort of conviction, those will go to the Supreme Court. I was a federal prosecutor. I was a public defender. None of these cases, if anybody else was the defendant, would even be tried before the year 2025. That's how much pretrial litigation and the court scheduling calendar has to undertake to even ingest a case like that. Now they're telling me they've reoriented the entire judicial process, both at the federal and state level, to expedite Donald Trump's proceedings when the DOJ's policy is never to interfere in elections, supposedly. But this time they do. No, they're breaking every rule. We know it. We see it. We see it with Hunter Biden. We see it with Joe Biden, and the public sees it. And if they dare to convict Donald Trump and actually imprison him, this country may not survive that political hack job. And I don't think that that's going to happen. One, I think Donald Trump's innocent of all these charges. Two, America will not allow that. And once these cases go to sensible constitutional minds who don't care about politics, you cited Alan Dershowitz as one of them. These are the types of people in the Supreme Court that are going to say, what is your constitutional basis for charging Donald Trump with violating the First Amendment because he has the belief that he won the election? That's not criminal. When Hillary Clinton said it wasn't criminal, when Nancy Pelosi said it wasn't criminal, when Hakeem Jeffries says it wasn't criminal, and when people say it in 24, 28, 32, 34, 36, it's never criminal. It's adjudicated at the polls. But the fact that they hate Donald Trump so much, and the fact that you have this Judge Chutkan in D.C., so hell-bent on prosecuting and convicting Donald Trump before he even enters a courtroom, shows you the whole system's rigged. Yeah. And shows you there's a two-tier system of justice. And so we just go back to our central thesis that this deep state has taken over all levels of government, all branches, state, federal, etc., and can only be routed out one way, with a resounding victory for Donald Trump, the only America First candidate that is going to restore our border, take on Iran, take out terrorists, take on Russia and China, kick out the drug traffickers, and kick out the human traffickers. And how about restore law and order to our streets?
One of the things you alluded to that I think a lot of people, even big Trump supporters, are not aware of, I think it's the Georgia case where the defense attorneys have been given 1 million pages of documents and said, you need to be ready here in just a few months, while you're also trying to prepare for the other cases. And it's crazy. But, you know, when you talk about the Supreme Court, here is a concern a lot of us have. The Constitution says if one state sues one or more other states, it doesn't go through the federal court food chain. That lawsuit will be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. So when Texas sued several other states late 2020, between the election and the inauguration, the U.S. Supreme Court 7-2 said, we don't care what the Constitution says. We're not going to hear the lawsuit. Only Clarence Thomas and Alito said, well, guys, the Constitution says we should. What's So the concern a lot of us have is trusting the Supreme Court, including the three great justices Donald Trump put on the court, to do the right thing when some of these indictments of President Trump rise to the level of the U.S. Supreme Court. Do you understand our concern there?
Yeah, though you're talking about original jurisdiction. And in the case of the Supreme Court, that is original jurisdiction for the rare instances. But this is going to go up on appellate jurisdiction. And so the state and federal issues are going to work its way up. And None of that's happening inside of 3 years. It's just not.
Right.
And so Donald Trump should never be in actual legal jeopardy, even though they're trying to enforce it on him or fabricate it upon him. And what should happen is the federal issues need to be adjudicated, such as the DC case we talked about. Let's look at the Georgia case. Okay, they're saying he did what on January 6th? They didn't charge him with insurrection. They had the opportunity because he didn't commit insurrection. Much like on the classified documents case, they didn't charge him with unlawfully possessing classified documents because it's lawful for the president to take those documents in the fashion that he did. So they're just ginning up other spooky crimes to make it sound like Donald Trump is a really bad guy. But the American public isn't swamp stupid. And so I think we're going to come through all right.
Well, when Jack Smith had his announcement of his charges, half of his press conference, half of what he said had nothing to do with the indictment. And for people who don't know, this is a guy who destroyed the political career of a very popular governor of Virginia some years back, a fellow named Bob O'Donnell, and they got overturned 9-0 in the Supreme Court eventually. So it's not a surprise they got in. I know you got to run. Let me get one more question in here. Play devil's advocate. We want to go back, and rat out the deep state and fight back against the rhinos. What do you say to people, including Trump supporters, who are concerned about Trump backing people like Kevin McCarthy and Ronna McDaniel, and people saying, well, that's the swamp right there. Lindsey Graham, who he campaigns with in South Carolina, that's your deep state. That's your swamp. Why don't you, get some distance between you and those people?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I'm not the political mastermind behind all of it, but I know, having run the game that I have in my career, you got to bring everybody into the tent. You can't take everybody on. And I'd rather crush the deep state, the radicals in there, and at least get to like 80% or 85% and then worry about the other 15. But if we go for 100% out of the gate, like Republicans usually do, and tear each other down, we're not going to win. So look, I don't necessarily like all the individuals that you're talking about here. And I don't know that President Trump does either, but I think he has a mathematical calculation to be like, we got to win this thing. I got to win these states. I got to have the reservoir and the reach that some of these organizations have, because I can't duplicate that fight for fake criminal cases and win a presidential election all on his own. He's our leader, and I think he makes smart, intuitive political decisions that we should rely on, because at the end of the day, it's for the greater good of the country. And you just have to ask yourself, do you want Donald Trump to be the president or not? And I think the only guy that knows how to do it better than anyone is Donald Trump.
Kash Patel, it's always an honor to have you on the program. The new book, available September 26th. You can pre-order it right now. Government Gangsters, The Deep State, the Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy. Wherever books are sold, as you mentioned, if you want an autographed copy, go to governmentgangsters.com. Any parting thoughts you want to leave with our audience, sir?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And if you want to catch up with me at any time, one place and one place only, Truth Social at KASH, Truth Social at KASH. Us conservatives got to learn to wean ourselves off the corrupt disinformation kings at social media giants like Facebook and Twitter, who helped rig the past election plus, and they're going to do it again. And we can't be on those platforms. I know it's a long-term process, but I'm just throwing out there that Truth Social, Rumble, other stuff exists, and we'll see you all over there.
Kash Patel, God bless you, sir. We wish you Godspeed. Thank you so much for coming on the Doc Washburn Show.
Thanks so much, Doc. It's been fun.
And now it's time for our tweet of the day, brought to you by Red River Auto, the big old car dealership in the middle of the USA that believes in freedom, including your freedom to buy the car, truck, van, or SUV of your choice the way you want to, online, have it delivered to your front door anywhere in the continental USA.
Tweet of the day.
Today's tweet of the day is from a guy named Corey Toomey, CoreyToomey. He's got a big picture of Mitt Romney, who just recently announced he's not going to run for re-election to the United States Senate as a Republican from Utah. And he has a quote of what He imagines a lot of so-called moderate Republicans would say, Mitt Romney would have been such a good prez. He says that's showing up in his Twitter feed, and he needs to address it. He says Mitt didn't win because he didn't want to win. It's that simple. He got cold feet in October 2012 and didn't go for the jugular as he should have. It is really that simple. Now, that's our tweet of the day from a guy named Corey Toomey, who is one of the rare conservatives living in Connecticut, a deep blue state. And I responded. I said he obviously laid down in the last debate. I've talked about this before, but I've never seen anyone say it as clearly as you just did. And I put up the little GIF or whatever you call it of Michael Scott from The Office saying, you nailed it. And that is the tweet of the day, brought to you by Red River Auto.
Tweet of the day.
You've been watching episode 406 of the all-new Doc Washburn Show. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to help our videos be seen by more people. And be sure to click that notification bell. The views and opinions expressed on the Doc Washburn Show do not necessarily reflect those of our advertisers, but they love us and we love them. If you have any questions for us, email us at contact@docwashburnshow.com. Today's program has been produced by Tim Terrible, directed by Mick Messy. This has been a terribly messy production. Portions of today's show will be taken overseas and dropped. If you'd like a transcript of today's episode of the all-new Doc Washburn Show, simply peel the roof off a Rolls-Royce panel truck and send it to Mansour's Computer Solutions, 7th floor of the ephemeral B. Smoot Building, Whitehall, Arkansas, in care of Sheriff Mansour Sempier X, Senior Vice President, Engineering, IT, and Interoperability for the Doc Washburn Show. And that's the way it was. Friday, September 15th, 2023.